Hi, shalom everyone. I'm continuing the rabbinic series at the moment. Here next week, from time recording on Chaf Vav Iyar, it's going to be the yard site, really great Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, also known in the Hebrew acronym of his name as the famous Ramachal. He was a great Italian Jewish rabbi. He was a Kabbalist and a philosopher. In fact, he was born in the year 1707 and passed away in the year 1746. He was born in the Jewish area of Padua in the Republic of Venice, and he was the son of Jacob Vita and Diamenta Luzzatto. And he received a Jewish education, Italian education also. It's reported he might have attended the University of Padua and was very great. He became proficient with regards to Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, the Gemara itself, and rabbinic commentaries and codes of Jewish law and Kabbalah. He was very indulged in poetry. It was reported where he would write poems based on the book of Tehillim, the Sefer of the Tehillim, on Psalms. Also, this even before the age of 20. Many of these great works was actually printed, I believe, in Venice through different areas. For example, different works included the Hanukat Hamaron, which was printed in Venice, I believe, in 1729. And lots of works. Some people say that he wrote different dramas. For example, a biblical drama of Shimshon or Philishtim. This was only at the age of 17 where he did this youthful production also. And he wrote books. There was books that was printed, as I said before, in the year 1727. Some of them in, I think, Venice or Mantua. It was, which was absolutely incredible. He also wrote an allegorical festival drama called Migdal Oz, or also it's known as Tumat Yesharim, on the occasion of the marriage of his friend. It was reported is Yisrael Benjamin Basan, which was a 4-act play which shows Latin and Italian as well as biblical influence. So he was able to blend in the different languages with everything else. It was reported that he learned with a Maggid, I think only at the age of around 20 years old, which people questioned, how is this possible over there? But we've learned in different videos of the great Rabbonim we've spoken about. There was some of these Rabbonim were able to learn with Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet over here. So it was reported he learned with a Maggid. He had like divine lessons within regards to obviously different probably realms of Kabbalah itself, respectively. There was be worried because only between the year 16 to 26 to 1676 Shabtai Tzvi was alive at the time, but that's why people were maybe were questioning this or whatever it might be. But he very much was the genius of Rabbi Chaim Moshe Luzzatto was absolutely incredible, as we still learn his teachings in all the yeshivot, especially in the Mosar Seder. Even nowadays, he departed from Italy at a later stage, and I think in the year 1735 he left Italy for Amsterdam. He believed that let's say over there it was maybe a more liberal environment there. He would be able to pursue more mystical interests over there. He passed through Germany. He was very, very well travelled, and he appealed to local rabbinical authorities because there was some worries with regards to maybe just safety and stuff like that. But he passed around there, and it's actually interesting that he had a mentor called Rabbi Yeshayahu Basan, who sympathized with, let's say, his pupil, and even sent him back some of the different writings to publish at the time. There was letters between Moshe Hagiz and Yaakov Poppers and Basan within regards to the authority of the great Rabbi Luzzatto's writings, which was in Venice also. But be that as may, this maybe I would tell everyone to research that in of itself. Rabbi Luzzatto finally reached Amsterdam in Holland, in the Netherlands, and he was able to pursue his Kabbalistic studies quite easily. He earned a living as a diamond cutter. We learn many of these great rabbis, they had professions also. He continued writing, but he wasn't necessarily teaching per se. It was in that period he wrote the great colossal work, which many of the yeshivot learn nowadays, the Mislat Yesharim. I believe this was learned this was printed in the year 1740, The Path of the Just, as they call it, and it was an ethical treatise, but with mystical underpinnings. I remember learning this some years back in a nighttime program over there. The book presents this is what an illustration of the book is, a step-by-step process by which every person can overcome the inclination to sin and might eventually experience a divine inspiration similar to prophecy over here. This is a phenomenal book, a phenomenal work, which many people are learning nowadays. Just shows the greatness of the Rabbi. This was nearly 300 years ago. Another great work he wrote, authored, was Derech Hashem, the Path of Hashem, which is a concise work on the core theology of Judaism. The same concepts, you could say, are discussed in brief in a smaller book called the Ma'amar Hal-Karim, which is an English translation of the book, which very much is available also. There was also the Da'at Tevunot, which was the knowing of the heart, which also found its existence in Amsterdam. Very, very much interesting also. It's one major great rabbi who very much praised Rabbi Luzzatto was Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, the famous Vilna Gaon who lived between the years 1720 till the end of the 18th century of 1797, and he considered to be, let's say, one of the most authoritative Torah sages at that point in time, but really spoke very highly within regards to his work. Rabbi Luzzatto also wrote poetry and drama, as we touched upon himself. Almost most of it, let's say, it seemed secular to some degree. Many rabbis claim to have identified mystical undertones in the body of the work itself. His writing is strongly influenced by the Jewish poets of Spain and by contemporary Italian authors also, it's reported over. It's actually interesting, there was a famous Chazan in Amsterdam called Rabbi Abraham Kakares, who worked with Rabbi Luzzatto to set several of his poems in music. Also, maybe we should do a separate video on Rabbi Abraham de Karakas at one. I hope I pronounce his name correctly also. What's interesting that he left eventually Amsterdam and moved to Eretz Israel in the year 1743. He lived in Accra over there, and 3 years later he passed away in a plague, I believe. Also, his family sadly passed away also. His burial site, though it is accepted by rabbis that his tomb is in Kfar Yassif, where some assume to have identified it, his burial place is traditionally said to be near the great rabbi of Rabbi Akiva in Tiberias. Also, there's a synagogue in Accra, which was actually Rabbi Luzzatto's original synagogue. Unfortunately, it was razed by the city's Bedouin ruler at the time in the year 1758. Mosque was built reportedly on top of it, which has to say something. But the Jewish people of Accra received a small building north of that specific mosque, which still functions as a synagogue and bears the name of Rabbi Luzzatto. Also wrote many religious writings, and he was rediscovered by the famous Mosar movement also. As we said before, many people will learn it in the yeshivot, especially in Eastern Europe. It was part of the curriculum to learn, especially books like the Derech Hashem, very much, especially. Unfortunately, a lot of his writings were actually burnt. It was reported over. From the Zoharic writings, the 70 Tikkunim HaDashim reappeared in 1958 against all, let's just say, odds. Actually featured in the main library of Oxford, which we talked about also. There was also the Haskalah movement, which obviously wasn't, many people would definitely criticize with very good reason. The writers of the Haskalah, the Jewish expression, let's say, of the Enlightenment, they also admired Rabbi Luzzatto's secular writings and deemed him the founder of modern Hebrew. It was reported over also. It's actually interesting, it's reported over that his cousin, Ephraim Luzzatto, who lived till the year 1792, exerted genuine influence on the first stirrings of modern Hebrew poetry. So let's look at some of the books that he wrote quickly before we end this session of it. This really, really great rabbi, really great writings. Let's do this quickly. The Maaseh Shimshon, which obviously is the story of Shimshon HaGibor. Lashon Limudim, which is a tongue for the teaching, we can translate it. Migdal Oz, which we talked about before. There was Zohar Kohelet, which is a book on Ecclesiastes. I always pronounce that correctly. Shivim Tikkunim, which we talked about before. Zohar Tin Yana. There was also the Klalot Ha'ilian or Klalot Ha'elan, which was principal elements of the tree of life. There was Ma'amar Hashem, which is a discourse on Hashem. Ma'amar HaMerkava, the Ma'amar Shem Membet, the Ma'amar Hadin, the Ma'amar HaChma, or Ma'amar HaChma, the Ma'amar HaGeula, Ma'amar HaNevu'ah, which is a discourse on prophecy. Mishkanei Elyon, or the Ain Yisrael, the well of Yisrael, the Ain Yaakov, also the well of Jacob. The Milchamot Hashem, that was another work of his. The Kinaot Hashem, Tzivakot. There was also the Adir Bamarom, Igorot, Patrei, Chochma, V'da'at. Many different works, including he did something on Sefer Daniel, Tiktu, Tefilot, Kitzur, Kavanot, also, which is very interesting. Ma'ama, Ha-Ve-Chuach. Also the Kla, Patrei Chochma. Also the Arichat Klalot, Ha'elan, the Klalim, the Da'at Vunot, which we talked about before. There's a Perush on Medrash Rabbah also, very interesting. The Derech Hashem, which we talked about, many of the yeshivot modern day will learn it. The Ma'amar al Ha'agadot, which is discourse on the Agadah respectively. The Ma'amar Hal Kurim, and there was also Derech Chochma. There was, and the Vichuach HaChochma V'Chesed. Also the most famous, probably arguably, the Mislat Yesharim, the Path of the Just, which is probably the most famous of his books over there, which was written when he was 33 in the year 1740. There was Sefer HaDikduk, which was on the grammar. Sefer HaHigayon, also the Ma'amar al Drasha. The Sefer HaMalitza, the Derech Tvunot, and the Leishrim Tihila. Also, these are great books. Over there was one of the great rabbis from Italy over here. Chavav, 26th of Iyar. Itzisi Lula. Please learn more about him. Read his books. Amazing teachings over here of Rabbi Luzzatto over here, the famous Ramchal. I was actually in Harnof last week and there was a beautiful Ramchal synagogue also in Harnof. There's many institutions, I think, that are made in his memory and everything else. So please light candles in his memory and learn more about the great Ramchal also. Wishing you a great day. And don't forget to watch over the previous videos. We've covered already about 200 rabbis over here. We're a community over here. Let's keep going and enjoy.